Good evening and welcome back to the Mulligan Moneyline's podcast brought to you by Wasaga Sports Network. As always, I am your host, Aiden Brown, joined by Ben Garcia and Deagle. We're going to talk about some of these games from Week 9 and give our big thoughts, starting off with Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Trinidad Chambliss coming off yet another good offensive performance, his most passing yards in his career thus far. Very successful first half with the Ole Miss rushing game. Kewan Lacey going for 2 tuds in the first half. Oklahoma's rushing defense did step up in the second half, not allowing as much run game, but lost it in the secondary where there were big holes, and Trinidad Chambliss was able to find his guys downfield and come out with a big win. I think that if Lane Kiffin stays in this Ole Miss atmosphere, he's got a serious chance to go into the playoffs and make a run. They've got a soft schedule for the rest of the season. Oklahoma, on the other hand, is entering a gauntlet facing Tennessee and Alabama, not at home. And Mateer, I just don't think he's got what it takes to lead this Sooners team to the playoffs. I just have not seen enough from him coming back from this surgery to be convinced.
I definitely agree. I think that John Mateer showed that he lacks the ability to make critical decisions in clutch situations. I really thought that he was going to have a huge bounce back game and do a lot better than he did against Texas. He showed in that game that he wasn't ready to come back, and then he follows it up the next week by keeping his team in a huge top 10 matchup and still unable to come up with anything at the end of the game to help his team.
And it's unfortunate if you were the backup quarterback for Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was playing pretty solid games, and then they just benched him for their starter.
Yep. Yeah, and then, the next game we'll talk about is the Texas Longhorns. They went to Starksville to take on Mississippi State. This game was an absolute shootout. Texas came in thinking that they had a defense that could keep up with anybody in the SEC, honestly, anybody in the country, and they came out dog-tired. Their offense had an inability to stay on the field and sustain drives. I think in the first half, they went 3 and out 5 or 6 times, that's absolutely going to be unacceptable later in the year, especially when they have to travel to Athens later this season. I think that poses significant issues for the Longhorns. They did creep back into the top 25. They're now number 22. But 2 weeks in a row, the Longhorns have shown up in overtime on the road in the SEC, and that still does mean something.
Yep. Yeah, I was amazed watching that Texas-Mississippi State game because Mississippi State was dominating on both sides of the ball first 3 quarters. Mississippi State, how did you give up that game?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. I was absolutely mind blown seeing that they came back after the first half score. And, Arch Manning looking a little banged up again. He's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I don't think he's what everybody expected him to be in the preseason. Steve Sarkisian is not happy with how this Texas team is playing, and frankly, I completely understand. They've got a tough schedule ahead of them, and there is a very, very high chance that this Longhorns team going in at preseason number 1 misses the playoffs entirely.
Well, I'm going to switch it up here, fellas. I'm going to bring us to the group of 5, the 2 leading teams in the group of 5, Memphis and USF. Big matchup. Likely, the winner of that game was likely going to the playoffs with that group of 5 spot, and Memphis scoring 17 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to come back and beat USF. They're now ranked 25, and USF's no longer ranked. They're the front runners in the group of 5.
Yep, absolutely huge.
We've seen USF come up big a lot this season. They had a big group of 5 matchup against North Texas where they blew the brakes off of them, their only big loss being to that Miami team. But coming out against Memphis, that last kick in the fourth quarter to tie it back up, I just don't know if South Florida really ever had what it takes, but either way, they absolutely deserve their flowers for having the start of the season that they did, coming in with some huge wins and really putting their team on the map.
Absolutely. Huge win over Florida.
Yeah,
got that one over Florida.
Going into a new segment, we're going to have Drew here give us 5 college football teams, and me and Ben are going to try to blind rank them to the best of our ability based off record and overall performance.
All right, fellas. Blind ranking 5 of these teams. Let's go ahead and start with Miami.
Ooh, that's a little bit tough for me.
Maybe 4, considering there could be a group of 5 team in this bunch.
I'm okay with 4. I just don't think that they've impressed me that much.
All right, we're going to put Miami at 4.
Miami at 4.
Next team's going to be Ohio State.
I want to give the Buckeyes number 2.
Possibly. I think there are a few teams in the country that are better than Ohio State, and I would surprise me if none of them were on the list.
They got that number 1 seed, but their strength of schedule has not been impressive. You know, they've got a big game coming up on Saturday, or what we thought would be a big game with Penn State. But we've seen now that yet again Ohio State gets to limp into the playoffs with probably a very high seed and a first week bye. I'd say 2.
2.
We're going to bring in Auburn.
Oh, boy. Is Auburn better than Miami?
You know, as much as I would love to discredit Carson Beck and what he's doing down in Miami, I honestly think if you played that game on a neutral site, Auburn-Miami, you played it 10 times, Miami wins 8 out of the 10.
I agree. So we go in with Auburn at 5.
Auburn at 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're going to bring in Oregon.
Oh, man, I should have saved the 5 slot.
Yeah, we definitely should have kept the 5 slot open.
Oregon sucks. Let's just be real here.
Yeah. Not a real contender.
Narrow win over Penn State.
They're small. They're weak.
Garbage win over
I guess
Wisconsin.
We gotta put them at 3, and that really is going to leave this last team number 1. I don't know who it could be.
Well, I know you would like this team to be number 1. It's going to be Georgia.
Yes, that's
and I'll take the Dogs at 1 all day. I do think the Dogs are the best team in college football right now, regardless of the loss to Alabama. I think if you played that game 10 times, I think that is the only time that Alabama wins that matchup.
I could see that. I mean, we had that game the whole time. We were 1 dropped pass away from being an undefeated team right now, and I think if people started to realize that, they would realize that the Dogs are still absolutely in contention for not just the playoffs, but, I mean, they could easily make it to the national championship and beat anybody in the country.
Yep. But I know that Kirby Smart loves having his team low profile at number 5, heading into, a tough rest of the schedule left. We still have an undefeated Tech. We got Texas coming to town. There's a lot to talk about the Dogs, but they're not in the top of the news headlines right now.
Well, fellas, your rankings are number 5, Auburn, number 4, Miami, number 3 is Oregon, number 2 is Ohio State, and number 1 was Georgia.
I mean,
go
honestly,
Dogs, baby.
Only thing I would have done there is switch Miami and Oregon, really. I mean,
yeah.
That could have gone a lot worse for us.
That could have.
I'm pretty happy with that overall.
Really? You think Auburn's worse than Oregon and Miami? Oregon?
Auburn versus Oregon is a close matchup, I think.
I mean, you could arguably argue that Auburn should have beat Oklahoma. Some iffy calls there, but Georgia beat them. Georgia beat them defensively. I mean, yeah. Most of the time, I'd say that Dante Moore can get it done against Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing in Jordan-Hare, I'd take Auburn over every team in that group other than Georgia.
Agreed. Moving on into Week 10, a little bit of a slower slate for this week, but we've still got some great games that I'm excited to talk about, starting off with Tennessee versus Oklahoma. Tough matchup for the Sooners heading into Neyland. Obviously, it's a very tough stadium to play in, one of the hardest atmospheres, very loud. Tennessee fans, we all know how I feel about them. Don't love them. But with that being said, they are coming off a very high-scoring win against Kentucky, 56-34. Oklahoma coming off that loss at home to Ole Miss. And again, I just don't think that Mateer is going to be the guy to be able to save this Sooners season. I think that Tennessee comes out and absolutely mollywops the Sooners. I'm definitely taking Tennessee to cover the spread at -2.5.
Yeah. I think Neyland Stadium at night, way too big of a stage for John Mateer and the Sooners. I like Tennessee -2.5. I like the over also at 55.5 because Tennessee showed their defense is not that great even at home.
Yeah, Tennessee, if Oklahoma's offense is doing like they did the past couple of weeks, will probably score 56 points again.
Right.
Kentucky, 7 points against Georgia, scored 34 against that Tennessee defense. Tennessee likes to play offensive shootouts.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it's going to be one of those games, Tennessee is going to beat Oklahoma every time. And if the offense doesn't get going, they might actually be able to hold Tennessee.
Yeah, and if John Mateer comes back out and he's throwing the ball around like a girl again, I think that Tennessee, I think they have a great shot to just steamroll Oklahoma.
Absolutely. Let's see.
The next matchup we have is Vanderbilt versus Texas. I'll be honest, guys. This game has a lot of question marks.
Absolutely.
Are we looking at Arch Manning versus Diego Pavia, or are we looking at Matt Caldwell versus Diego Pavia? We don't know yet. We do know that Arch Manning has been sitting out of practice this week and that Caldwell has been taking the snaps with the ones. So we're at least going to see probably a less sharp version of Arch if he plays at all. And I will say this, a lot of the conditions for this game line up for a big upset for Vandy. You've got a noon kickoff. Arch Manning is questionable, and you have a serious lack of consistency in the way that Texas Longhorns have played in virtually every game. They haven't been consistent from one week to the next, and they haven't been consistent from one snap to the next. And I think that all plays heavily in Vanderbilt's favor. But, Texas is coming off of 2 road wins in the SEC in overtime. That can't be discounted, even though they're not great opponents between Kentucky and Mississippi State. Now, those aren't the best opponents in the SEC by any stretch, but I still lean on the Longhorns' size and capability at home versus a smaller, less prepared, less road-tested Vanderbilt team. I like Texas at -3.5, and I definitely like the over in this game at 46.5.
I agree with you there. I do think that there are a lot of question marks in this game. I've been riding with Vandy all season long, and Pavia has not disappointed me yet. However, there have been
even at Alabama?
I did not bet Vandy to beat Alabama, thankfully. However, I also agree that Texas, those 2 overtime wins, they are big. They're favored to win. It is a home matchup for Texas. I like Texas money line. I don't know if they're going to be able to cover that spread. I think that Pavia has been able to keep games close. It hasn't really been a lot of blowout wins for the Commodores, but they've been able to get down and dirty in the fourth quarter and get it done. And so I don't know if that run is going to be able to last forever. Going into Texas, I just don't know if they have the firepower to get it done. I like Texas money line.
This is going to be a game about time of possession here, gentlemen. If whoever holds the ball longer is probably going to win this game. Whoever's got a more consistent offense that keeps drives going and keeps the momentum, even if it's just a field goal, a 12-play field goal drive, that still wears out defenses and gives you the upper hand later in the game. So 100%. I think Vandy's going to control time of possession and win this game.
Well, wow, definitely. I think this game comes down to what Drew said, time of possession and third downs. Who can stay on the field and who can get off the field.
I'm going to bring us over to 2 ranked teams, a Cincinnati-Utah game tomorrow, Saturday night, November 1st at 10:15. So Cincinnati's been clawing their way up the top 25. They've been beating opponents such as ranked 14 Iowa State, and they've just kept playing consistent football. And Utah just put up 53 points against Colorado and have been playing consistent football as well, only losing to Texas Tech.
Yeah, this is the biggest matchup the Big 12's had in a long time. The Big 12 has been a quiet conference. They've got Texas Tech up in the top 10, but other than that, they're a very quiet conference this season. I think the Utes come out and win by a wide margin. I don't think that Cincinnati has the firepower to keep themselves in this game. I think that they're a lower tier Big 12 team, and definitely gonna have to go with the Utes, but not to win by 10.5. I just don't see that covering. So for that reason, I'd have to go Cincinnati plus 10.5. And I do like the under in that game at 54.5.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do think that Cincinnati and Utah have both done a great job trying to fight their way back into this top 25, especially with how volatile it's been. I'm sure the loser of this game is going to be right in and right out. I do agree with Ben. I think that Utah is going to win this game by a solid margin, but I'm not sure if 11 points is that margin. I think they win by 7, maybe 10. I also like Cincinnati plus 10.5.
Well, despite what you two think, Cincinnati is ranked 17 compared to Utah's rank of 24. I think everyone's sleeping on this Cincinnati team, and I think a lot of people are thinking like you guys with the Utah winning this solidly. But I think Cincinnati's going to have a real chip on their shoulder, and they're going to come out and play defensive football.
Yeah, I could definitely see that coming. We got one more matchup this week. It's Stockton versus Lagway. It's Ball versus Bowens. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the South's largest outdoor cocktail party happening in Jacksonville this Saturday. Dogs versus Gators. Who you got?
I'm always going to ride with my Dogs. Florida not even having a real head coach right now with Billy Napier being fired. DJ Lagway having as many interceptions as he does touchdowns on the season. He's shown glimpses of being a good quarterback, but I just don't think that even in a neutral site that favors Florida. I know Dogs fans, I know that they always pack out that stadium with red no matter how far of a drive it is. I think that Georgia covers by a fair margin. I'm taking UGA minus 7.5 all day.
Yeah, Florida is just scrambling as a program right now. They need some consistency that they don't have right now. Georgia's big rival game here, one of the oldest SEC rivalries. Georgia's going to come into the swamp and
handle business.
Yeah. I think the Gators are going to play inspired football this weekend. Most schools end up playing a lot better after they fire coaches. It gives the players a little bit more oomph. They play a little looser. So I think that the Gators keep this one close, going in to maybe into the fourth, probably middle of the third. But I think the Dogs pull away. I got the Dogs minus 7.5, and I would hammer that over at 50.5.
I like that line as well. As always, this is the Mulligan Moneylines podcast brought to you by Wasaga Sports Network. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to catch us for our midweek madness, talking about some of these primetime NFL matchups. And next weekend for Week 11, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later.